Welcome to Green Giants, Titans of Renewable Energy, the podcast where insights and innovation meet. Every episode, we dive into conversations with industry leaders, experts, and change makers, bringing you the stories and ideas in the renewable energy sector that shape our world. And now, let's jump into today's episode with your host, Wes Ashworth. Welcome back to another episode of Green Giants, Titans of Renewable Energy. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Richard Liu, President and CEO of SolarBank Corporation. Dr. Liu's journey is anything but ordinary, from training as a medical doctor to leading global renewable energy companies across 3 continents. He brings a rare combination of technical insight, business strategy, and people-first leadership. Under his direction, SolarBank has evolved from a private developer into a publicly listed clean energy company operating in Canada, the US, and Europe, with projects spanning solar, storage, EV infrastructure, and more. In this episode, we dig into the principles behind SolarBank's growth, Dr. Liu's unique leadership philosophy, and his take on everything from workforce development to tariffs to energy geopolitics. Whether you're a seasoned industry insider or just curious about the future of clean energy, this is a conversation you won't want to miss. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Wes. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a while. It's going to be a great conversation. But as I alluded to there, your path into renewables is anything but traditional. And that's what makes it so compelling. So let's begin by exploring how your journey started, what drew you to the energy sector in the first place. And so with that, you trained as a medical doctor, pivoted into business and energy. Can you walk us through just how that transition happened and what pulled you into renewables?
I'm trained as an occupational physician. There are many disciplines in medical science. So I'm not a GP. I'm not a brain surgeon. I choose to be an occupational physician, which is really, it's a specialty that working with organizations to taking care of many work-related items. I have done cancer research with National Institute of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. I have done health surveillance in Nova Scotia, Canada. I help Enbridge to making sure people are safely working in flammable areas. And of course, I work with Toronto Hydro, where people are faced with electric hazards all the time. So, but you look at all of those ones, I look at my journey saying, I started by learning a trade that taking care of sick people. And by my choice, I start to looking at healthy people, making sure they're safe. But the more and more you do this one, you eventually know that the environment is where people got exposed, they got developed into either health or illness. So that's where, as I progress from a occupational physician, graduating to management, increased responsibilities, by the time I get to Toronto Hydro, that I decided perhaps the larger environment should be my target for focus, and fighting climate change become one of the most important role for me. So that's where renewable energies, as we talk about, become my pursuit in the rest of my career.
Yeah. It really is incredible just watching the journey and seeing it, how you ended up to where you are today. And as I mentioned too, so you've held leadership roles across Canada, Europe, Asia. How did that global exposure help shape your perspective on energy as a whole and how it should be developed?
In my career, I got to travel a lot. In the States, I'm in Canada for 35 years. I traveled to Europe running global operations over there. As you travel, you look at what is the biggest source of environmental impact. I joke with people, I said, well, there's only 3 things worth doing in the world. One is power, one is transportation, and the third one is other, right? Jokingly speaking. But truly, you think about how we produce energy by burning fossil fuels at large, right? So that's the major environment impact coming from. So looking at this one, I'm thinking, maybe we find a way can produce electricity with less environmental impact, less emissions, and so on and so forth. So that's how I thought about energy probably is the best way to taking care of the environment and in turn taking care of our humanity's health issue.
Yeah, it's incredible. And that why is so important, right? And we'll spend some time on that today. But thinking about where you are now. So when you founded SolarBank, what was your vision for the company? How has that evolved now that you're a publicly listed developer on the NASDAQ?
Wes, people pursue different things, I guess, for fame or for fortune, right? As we
Yeah.
always say, right? Life is good. I've been working very fortunately with major corporations and the leadership of great people. So when I started the company, I'm thinking, what will make this company stand out? What will make this company last, right? So I look at this one, I will say, power from the sun with no fuel cost, with no carbon cost, it was very low maintenance. Perhaps it's probably the most reliable thing we can do. So my vision at the very beginning was that we supply the clean energy of the future as long as the sun shines.
Yeah.
The joke is about Wes. If the sun were ever not coming out,
It doesn't
you
matter
know,
anyways.
you're not worried about your money anymore, right?
Right.
But
Yep.
as long as the sun shines, we will deliver clean energy to you.
I love it. That's so good. And as I mentioned a little bit too, so you've taken SolarBank from a private company to a public traded clean energy player, and you've done it with the mindset of a seasoned utility operator. So I want to unpack what's behind that kind of growth, what makes your approach distinct. So talk to me about what principles have guided you. So if you've scaled SolarBank from the early days to public markets, what are those tried and true principles that have really guided you along the way?
Wes, in the energy business, you're talking about the scale, right?
Yeah.
So how do you scale up, right? So we focus on simplicity, we focus on speed, we focus on repeatability so that we can use the same skill and the repeat continue just to scale, right? But at the end of the day, all talking aside, right? It comes down to execution,
Yeah.
right? So we build a execution culture in this company based on three pillars. Number one is the people. Number two is the finance, and then number three is the project. Right?
Hmm.
We can get into more details, but you can see that without people, there's nothing you can do. But even with the people, that if they are focused, if they have the same mindset, focus on speed and simplicity, right?
Yeah.
Then you can create value for the investors so that the finance will become easier because you tell them that every project we take on is absolutely making money,
Hmm.
independently making money, and with low volatility. So now with all of those, you have people, you have money, and now you can build projects. And my projects are always emphasized on long term. Each solar project is 35 years long. Each
Yeah.
battery is 10 years. So what we emphasize on every project has to be safe, reliable, and low cost so that it will last for decades.
Yeah, I love that so much. It is, it's kind of, you hear it and it's simple and you're kind of like, yeah, everybody should do that. But it's rare, that you see it, and why you see a lot of startups not grow and not scale and not make it to the level you've been to. So I want to just continue learning from that wisdom. So one of the things you've said too is you think more like a utility than a typical startup. What does that really mean? And how does that show up in how you run the company?
Wes, we all go to restaurants. You look at the menu, you say, "Oh, that's expensive. I like it.
Yeah.
I'll do it." We go to department stores. We buy things. You can see the price are cheaper in Christmas time, and maybe sometimes more expensive, right? So that's the general economics. But
Yeah.
in utility economics, we operate in a price-taking environment. So in other words, at the end of the day, my solar project, my battery projects, etc., we sell electricity to consumers. That price is regulated by the regulators. So there's a price cap. So because of this, when you are working in a price-taking environment, you got to be very, very clear how to win this business. How to win this business. Now, you cannot change the price because no
Yeah.
one, you and me included, we don't
Yeah.
want to pay more electricity cost, right? So what we do is that in this company at SolarBank, we emphasize on two things. Number one, managing the cost,
Hmm.
right? So we have a mechanism, we have process, we have production line that we're managing the cost. Number two is increase the productivity, right? Because the throughput with scale, right, enable you to deliver more with less so that in a price capped environment, you can be more profitable.
Yeah, I love it. And probably easier said than done. I guess when you think about you set out to do that, Is it having the right people in place? Is it the right processes, as you mentioned? Is it all of it? I guess what's priority number one? So if a startup is starting, go back in time to where you began and they go, okay, I hear that and I want to do that as well. I want to repeat that success. Like, what's the starting place?
I would say, Wes, you start with a principle. You,
Yeah.
you start with a clear vision. We share the vision. I think I will share the principle because when I talk about people, finance, and project, that's about execution, right?
Yeah.
What are the principles, right? First one is the cost leadership. You want to making sure that in the operations, you keep it simple.
Hmm.
You emphasize on speed. You focus on execution. And then from there, you're looking at the productivity and efficiency. Efficiency is how many projects run through the production line. Productivity means that do you design the energy systems for production, right?
Yeah.
All versus for size. There's more details we can talk about in next time. If I'm just flipping projects, I will build a large project, probably will not making much electricity because shading over panels, we're not producing electricity, right? So that's one of the things. So we emphasize on production. Obviously, with hundreds of millions of dollars behind us, we do have the economic scale, right? With quality and service improvement, people continuous improve. Then we of course we think about, okay, we doing all right, we doing okay, we doing great. How do we work with our suppliers? How do we work with the customers? So overall, in this regulated market, that would adapt to, in this particular moment, things new every day,
Yeah.
and that's keep us going.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking about just SolarBank is active in everything from solar, storage, EV charging, data centers. I'm curious, so how do you evaluate where and when to expand into new segments? That's probably, the entrepreneur's question that keeps them up at night. But from your perspective, how can we learn in terms of getting into those new segments, when and why?
Wes, I schooled a lot, and
Yeah.
I'm a medical doctor. I am a safety professional. I'm an industrial hygienist. I'm also an MBA. I still give lectures at the Rodman School of Management and so on and so forth. When you look at those, when you say when companies started, right, they always started with their core competence.
Yeah.
Let's say solar bank. You know, I know how put a piece of glass on a stick, stick them in the ground, they convert photons to electrons.
Yep.
That's essential. That's critical, but that's not enough. How do you do it? You say, okay, do I do forward integration, get closer to my customers? Do I do backward integration, get closer to my suppliers? So that's how we manage it.
Yeah.
From my perspective, let's say get to closer to my customers. We could sell electricity. We prefer to sell electricity directly. But sometimes that, we sell the project to Honeywell, to QCell, to many, many people. We don't get to sell the electricity, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, we want to making sure that, we balance how many projects we sell, how many projects we own. Because when you sell it, you take one-time revenue. When you own a project, you have ongoing revenue for 10, 20, 30, 35 years, right?
Yeah.
So we want the longevity that so we can continue to sell. On the other side, now let's say we either choose to sell electricity directly by owning them or indirectly by selling the project to our customers, operating for them, so on and so forth. But now, even at selling the projects, lots of people go after huge utility projects. That's wonderful, big scale, great. However, it takes many, many years, which cost the increase, and you sell electricity at the wholesale price, the margins are very thin. Yes, millions of dollars. However, think about the risk I take using my investors' money, right? So we choose, right, to be at a commercial industrial level, at a community level, and we sell electricity at the retail price, give people 10%. Instead of selling it for 6 or 7 cents a kilowatt hour, we may be selling it 11, 12 cents a kilowatt hour. Yes, the scale may not be there, but through our vertical integration, that this cycle of very, very smooth run machine will give us the benefit to adjust this, how do we sell at a more preferred conditions. And on the other hand, in this company, we have very good relationship with our suppliers. We usually have a handful. We're making sure that those suppliers are bankable, reliable, available, and give us low cost. So those are the things. When you have a principle, you gradually build around it, so you can
Yeah.
expand.
Yeah, that's so good. Such good lessons there. I'll ask it even simpler, just a different variation of that question. So as entrepreneurs are looking at, or other business owners or leaders, in terms of evaluating, is this just a distraction, a shiny object, or is this something we really should venture out into or expand our business into this area? That's usually the wrestle, and there can be a high risk there, right? If you go towards a shiny object, spend a bunch of time in it, energy and investment, you can really end up in a bad place. So how do you, I guess your thought process as you're evaluating those, what do you go through?
Wes, that's a very good question. We humans always attracted by shining objects so that we
Yeah.
chase them, enjoying them, right? So on and so forth. But running a business, you got to be able to control your needs for instant satisfaction. It
Yeah.
sounds boring, but I guess lasting business is a little boring, right? Give you example, right? We produce electricity. We sell electricity. This is very boring, right? But we know that our product keeps your lights on,
Yeah.
keep you connected, and you cannot do without, right? So it's a lasting business. However, along the way, people say, let's go after EV charging. It's
Yeah.
great. Great. I think the future is electrical cars because, we have fewer and fewer fossil fuels to burn. And, the technology advanced. Now we don't have a range anxiety, so on and so forth. But the industry takes time. You know how many times, Wes, when you drive around, you saw, a parking lot full of chargers and how many cars there?
Yeah.
Very few, right?
Yep.
So my desire to cover the parking lots, every spot with a charger, may not get my investors what they want. So
Sure.
what do we do? That we adjust. I'll give you another example. We announced that going to data centers. We are very, very fundamentally business driven. So we look at data centers, say, what is the advantage that we have other people don't have? Everyone has this one. What make us actually lasting, right? What do I know about the data center? I use computers for sure, right? But anything else? Like I know the high performance computers. I know hyperscalers. We talk to them. We know they're looking for hundreds of megawatts and so forth. But at the end of the day, we resorted to hire very, very powerful consultants, align ourselves with those data center experts so that we are there, become the partner to them, not so much of the racks, right,
Yeah.
or the HPCs, but rather as a power supplier, right? So that's how we adjust ourselves. Even like expanding into lots of people say, oh, your renewables are so intermittent and so on and so forth. Yeah, sure. But we have battery storage. We're building large scale battery storage already, and so on and so forth, right? So we will say, well, maybe looking at some base load power, we have done gas turbines, we have done geothermals. We might looking into, some base load technologies in the coming future, right? So that's all get us to evaluate how do we incrementally, grow the business so that don't get blindsided by the shiny objects.
Yeah, so good. Such sound words of wisdom there and advice. I wanted to get that out. I do want to switch over to probably my favorite topic, especially just knowing how inspiring of a leader you are and the focus on people. So throughout your career, you've championed people not just for their skills, but you really look at their heart, their drive. I want to dig into how that people first philosophy plays out just on hiring, culture, leadership at SolarBank. We talked through some stories. You've turned musicians into construction heads and grads into finance leads. How do you identify potential beyond the resume?
Wes, I know you're very, very focused on human capital, and which is a very, very good topic. I think at the end of the day, it's the talents that make this world wonderful, right? So if
Yeah.
you look at those ones, when we hiring, resume is just the beginning. We highlight the keywords there, but when we're actually sitting down, we insist in-person interview, we insist full-time office work to increase the teamwork, so on and so forth. The first thing we're looking for is problem solving. Wes, we have problems, we have challenges, right? every day out there, right? So you don't want to be a deer staring at the light and freeze, right? You want to be, able to think on your feet and come with solutions, right? So problem solving is very important, right? And of course, another one, courtesy, curiosity, and learning, right?
Hmm.
We don't mind people nosing around. In fact, we don't have high cubicles. It's a very just pods and the stations. We encourage people, get interaction, overhear something, you may be able to contribute. I know there are sometimes workplace could be very, very tense, right? So emotional things important. The people are not easily excited, should we say? I think resiliency is certainly a gift. You know how many times we go to public meeting, we don't always get what we like to hear. We don't always get permitted. And, because there's a process that if people do not see the benefit to them, to their communities, right? Why they should say yes? That's why you got to making sure that, when you hear a no, we say a no is one step closer to a yes,
That's
right?
right.
Instead of thinking, oh God, what a day, right? So communication skills is important, from our perspective, because the days sometimes could be long. Yes, we are funny boys and we are taking sunshine projects we're proud of, but resiliency and passion is very important to us. So when you look at all of those ones, I would always start to say, do you have ability to solve a problem?
Yeah.
Can you provide a solution? We don't want to hear a no. We want to hear, what are you going to do about this no? Right? So that's how we have people. To me, it's always about thinking about, if you are not able to do it, you can certainly learn. We support learning. But if you're not willing to do it, there are probably few things we can do.
Yeah, I love all of that so much. And try to say it all the time. Like a resume is a piece of paper. It doesn't show who the person is. And I think having a lot of those traits, curiosity being a big one. You mentioned that one. I think that's a huge undervalued trait. And just asking questions, the passion, the energy, all of those things. We see that. We see that every day play out where companies that prioritize that, they build these really incredible teams. There's also companies that just look for every little specific skill and check every little box. And we joke around and say, oh, they had to be born on a Tuesday and, do all these little things. And they miss out on some great talent because of that. So I love your approach and philosophy there. And you alluded to it there. You talk about willingness versus just ability. What do you mean by that specifically? And how does that shape your team culture?
I find, it's very a honor and heavy responsibility that, as a leader, people are all good.
Yeah.
They're all good people. But it is our responsibility to put them in a place that, or provide them with a platform that they can shine, right? I remember back to 1994, the industrialist in Canada, Robert Shedd, his injection molding system at Husky,
Yeah.
his machines make most of the Pepsi bottles or Coke bottles and so on and so forth. He sent me to a Dartmouth Management School in University of Virginia as the executive program. I actually learned a lot, from there. And the idea is that you need to choose likely-minded people to form a team, right? So that they can together driving for excellence, right? And, with this team that you can move things forward, right? We say, oh, okay, how we do it, right?
Yeah.
So let's to be, very, very basic. Wes, if you hired a person that is not able and not willing, you put it on your payroll, you should be fired.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
You're not wrong.
What did you do?
Right.
Right? So people are good when you brought them to the company,
Yeah.
right? But for whatever reason, they're sometimes they may be not willing or maybe not able, right? For the people not able, you got to give them guidance. And we have this culture here. We walk around, we talk to people, we tell all the management people, your door has to be open all the time, because either you get out there to guide people, to give them opportunity, or they can come in anytime, right? But for the people may not be willing, why they're not willing? Are they changing their mind? If that's the case, be a good reference for them to get on better and good things, right? If they have some blockage, help them to move it, right? So that way that eventually you have the people able and willing, you gradually promote them, so on and so forth, right? So we use this 2 by 2 table a lot, right? And people say, oh, he's no good, oh, she's this and that. No, guys, can we be a little specific, right? Take Dennis, my construction manager, for example, right? He play guitar. He's a musician, right? What does he know about construction? What does he know about electronics, right? But this guy willing to learn. He's willing. So we put him under the Chief Operating Officer Andrew Van Dorn, PE, swing, and then we send him to school. And over time, that he now is such a good manager, we cannot do without.
Yeah.
Of course, there are people that they are able my way or highway, and we tell them you can take it highway.
Right. Absolutely. I love all of that. To put it another way too, so what advice would you offer up to other founders and CEOs about building a purpose-driven, passionate team within renewables?
I always say a mission is very important. Everyone enjoy talking about sports. Everyone wants to talk about how they enjoy the participation. So why don't we make a workplace a sports place? We come here to play and let's win it, right?
Yeah.
So I think a mission to win is very important, right? And then obviously, you need to be passionate. So from our perspective, empowering is important. We always tell people, no matter how strong, how great you yourself are, you're only one individual. It takes the team to move a mountain. So let's empowering them, right? Let's talk about, collaboration, transparency. So yes, I know even myself has lots of places to improve and so on and so forth, but I'd like you to tell me what I'm good at and
Yeah.
ask me to repeat what I'm good at rather than tell me, oh, you can be better, you can be this and that. Thank you. I'm a little rabbit. I just cannot swim. All right. You know,
Yeah.
so that's where, every time when people have some success that we celebrate, in this company, every first Monday of the month is a company lunch. Everyone, the birthday in that month, we celebrate. We roast around the table. We take, hey, you ask us what you want to know. We ask you what you want to do.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of things that you can see by leaders lead by example that people can actually, as a sports team, winning this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all that so much. And I'll shift a little bit just to try to get as much as we can, just timing wise. So, in an industry often focused on potential, you've delivered results and done it profitably. Let's explore how those operational principles that keep your projects grounded in both purpose and performance. So, you've emphasized that every project must be safe, reliable, low cost. How do you instill that discipline in your team and tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. Our company is vertically integrated, right? As a developer and the IPP, independent power producer, that we emphasize on safe, reliable, low cost. One of the ways how to set up your operations. We have development, then procurement, construction, operation, maintenance, and asset management. You think about this one, we call it as a production line, right? We don't just go out there because we love it. We actually say, okay, this is where we can put a solar farm. This is where we can build a battery farm. Is there interconnection? Is the people like it? Is the policy support? What's the permitting difficulty, so on and so forth, right? So when we started initiation a study, those studies will disqualify lots of sites. So that way you don't have to continue to hoping it may work tomorrow. So that saves you a lot of time, and time is money. And now we're moving it forward, get to engineering. We ask our people design a standard, not unique systems, so that when our contracts work for us, they say, here's the SolarBank's drawing. Yeah, we got it. We know it. We build it for them. So increase the efficiency. Now in operation maintenance, if something broken, that you don't have to looking for the unique parts. We have to wait for 4 weeks for them to deliver. Right?
Yeah.
So this whole process enable us to drive throughput through the construction, through the production. So that's how we talk about, winning this business.
Yeah, another thing you mentioned, which I absolutely love, and I thought it was incredibly insightful, is your financial philosophy of make money even if it's just $1, and don't justify mistakes with hypotheticals. And I love that so much. But I'd love for you to just expand on that. How does that mindset shape your project pipeline and risk approach overall? And what does that look like in your business just day in and day out?
We do lots of projects. We handled hundreds of millions of dollars. We own about $184 million of assets. We have recurring revenue. When you look at those ones as a public company, you have responsibility to your stakeholders, to your employees, and to your communities, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, you have to create a value. I know I said my project is long term, 35 years, 10 years. But Wes, if I tell you, hey, give me your money and you will make money in the long term after 35 years, would you invest? You probably
Probably
wouldn't,
not.
right? So probably not, right? So we say, okay, what do we deliver to the investors? We run financial modeling very, very in detail. Everything has to be clearly stipulated so that when we execute from the sheet. So if this thing calculating at the very beginning is not giving us the hurdle rate, we're not going to do it. People probably say, oh, well, maybe this could happen. No, not maybe. Not maybe. And the people say, well, if we could spend a little bit more money this way and A plus B may be larger than C. No, A plus B is less than the sum of A and B, right? So that's what absolutely making money, independently making money. So that's why our projects are very, very, I would say reliable. Touch wood, we haven't lost investors' money yet.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love that. Switch it a little bit over just to market misconceptions, policy realities. The energy space is full of opinions, headlines, and hype, but you've got a rare perspective, I think, just from every level of the value chain. And I'd love to get your take on what's misunderstood and what the public and even the industry needs to hear. So, what's one major misconception you hear about solar, and how do you typically respond to it?
As I really, really want people to know that when we use solar panels to produce electricity, there's no fuel cost. You have a thermal plant, you have a nuclear plant, you have a gas plant. You're going to pay for those fuels, right? That's about the 30-40% you don't have to pay,
Yeah,
right? And there's no carbon cost, like it or not. It is a pollution that somehow direct or indirectly have to pay. We don't have carbon cost. Maintenance, I grew up from a engineering company. Everyone's engineering, including my mom and
yeah,
my dad. They produce, they build thermal plants, and I, follow them, go to the site. Oh my God, you see the boilers, the steamers, turbines, the running parts, the noise, and so on and so forth. Everyone's working on 24/7, right?
yeah.
What do we do with solar farm? What is it? It's a piece of glass on a stick in the ground. We clean the glass as a maintenance, right? Maybe once every other year. I cut the grass. No, I don't cut the grass, Wes. I maybe just send a few sheep to eat it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with all those things, right? If the electricity are still, not competitive with anything else, then people doing it something wrong. But by the way, the renewable energy solar already at a grid parity several years ago, right? In the
Yeah.
recent development, you can see all the new power plants built are all renewable alike. So when people say, oh, it only works at the direct sunlight, no, it works as diffuse light. When people say it's very expensive, right? Yeah, I know. 10, 20 years ago, it was $4 a watt. Now it's $1 a watt, right? It's so competitive that, it's better than the fossil fuel based, right? Lots of people say it's not efficient enough. Well, when I started, it was 8%. Now it's already 22%. The technology advancement is hugely leaping forward, right? I talk about maintenance is much better than any other forms of power. They say, oh, but it cannot store it. Well, that's why we have battery storage, right? They say, but isn't that you put on the roof, it will crash the building? Yeah, I know. If people are not engineers, you not evaluate the building, and so also you might damage the roof. But that's not solar. That's the workmanship. So that you got to work with, professional people like the ones from SolarBank.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all of that. Not much to add there, but you debunked like five or more there, which is fantastic. It was really, really good. Obviously today too, there's a lot of talk around tariffs, reshoring, energy dependence, on in the headlines every single day. So, what's your take on how this affects clean energy development in North America? And I'd love just to hear your general perspective on those things as well.
Wes, I always look at things from short term and long term. Renewable energy didn't get here overnight. I remember when I did my first project in Toronto Hydro, that was 2003. That was 22 years ago, right? And so we understand that there are short-term pains for long-term gains, right? Tariff, for example, it does increase the cost. However, with the cost increase and with the incentives to onshore, with the energy independency, so on and so forth, suddenly both Canada and the US will start investing domestically. So from that perspective, yes, the cost increased. No, it brought work back. It create opportunities, create jobs, investments, and so on and so forth. So from our perspective, it's a balance between short term and long term. I would say, we buy from the international market, right? And with all those policy changes, now we shifted to procure from a domestic manufacturers, right? So overall, I would say it's a balance between short-term gain and the long-term gain. And I think, doesn't matter, the industry is moving forward.
Yeah, good sentiments there. And thinking about just looking ahead and future, what's coming. So we're entering a pivotal time for global energy. And with your experience across continents and technologies, I'm curious how you see the road unfolding over the next decade. But how do you see global supply and demand for renewable energy shifting? Give us the next 5 to 10 years.
So over the last decades, that the demand for electricity is fairly flat. However, with the artificial intelligence, with the proliferation of data centers, you can see that the digital economy is booming. Right? We used to ask Google, and probably I would say one click is only cost me a kilowatt hour,
Yeah.
right? But now you ask a DeepSeek, you ask all those AIs, and it costs tens of many fold of electricity, right?
Yeah.
So in the next 5 to 10 years, the demand is going to increase hugely. So you need to get supply. So where's the supply? Sure, we can build the SMRs, small modular reactors. That's about 10 years out. Sure, we can let our aging fleet thermal plants run, but those plants has been there 40, 50 years. It's beyond their design capacity, even the nuclear reactors. Okay, we built some new gas plants. Well, gas engines delivery to me, I was told, if you put order today, probably take you 3 or 4 years to get that engine, right?
Yeah.
So in the next, let's say 5 to 10 years, what can deliver immediately is really the momentum of renewables, which is solar, wind, and so on and so forth, right? So because of this, we will say, not only we need to increase the supply to meet the demand, but also we need to think about how to combat the intermittency. So that's where the energy storage is really developing. Now we have a capacity contract with ISO for 21 years. We continue to develop new technologies with partners so that we can enable commercial and industrial customers to manage their thing on site. So all of those things will enable us to overcome the challenges between supply and demand and moving things forward.
Yeah, it's so good. And I agree. I talk to so many great leaders on the podcast, which is a privilege to talk to people like you, but you hear that so much and you think about it, you're like, there's nothing left. It has to succeed. It has to go forward. Because it's the best solution. It really is from an economical standpoint, from availability, from speed. It's all those things that you mentioned. This is an exciting time. And I think the next 5 to 10 years are going to be fantastic for the industry. So with that, what's your take on the role of renewables in the energy dominance conversation? You mentioned that earlier, especially from a Canadian and North American lens.
So in Canada, we're very fortunate because we have a lot of hydropower,
Yeah.
right? So we are, just because abundant natural resources. We are a very clean country and we have electricities and we're already exporting to the United States, right? So that enables us to fully utilize a natural resources for societal development and also meet our climate change or economic opportunities, those obligations, right? So that's very good for Canada, right? I think in the U.S., we also have a lot of oil and gas. I think we're net exporters of oil and gas. But don't forget, we also have a lot of natural resources. In fact, I would say the southwest region of the United States has the best sun resources. And that's where you can see California is already solar dominant. Texas is already solar dominant. And there are development in Arizona, development in any other states. So that's where I would say that will enable the country to achieve the energy security. And, with this bring manufacturing back to the country can create, global leadership in this area. We're so fortunate, actually, we focus on North American moving things forward. Right. So, of course, there are challenges because, the aging infrastructural, some of the regulatory requirements and so forth, right? But, we hear energy dominant country and so on and so forth. Those are all driving the country to the right direction, right? So that we can not only responsibly use the existing fossil fuel as an energy source, but gradually building a dominant position in using the light from the sun, convert them into electricity.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some great just looks into what's ahead and your perspective on things, which I love. I'll kind of get us towards wrapping up, bringing it back to the people side. So you've built more than projects. You've built careers, culture, long-term impact. And one of the things you've said to me is nothing makes you happier than helping people find a home in the industry, which I again love that wholeheartedly. What's been your proudest moment so far as a leader?
I think there are three things that, being an energy guy, worked for Husky Injection Molding Systems, worked for Enbridge Oil Gas, working for Toronto Hydro, looking at the different energy aspects, demand response, energy efficiency. Looking forward, I would say, Wes, there are three things. And number one, I feel very, very fortunate that I'm part of the sustainable practice.
Yeah.
Where we can powering civilization forward with less and less fossil emissions. So remember at the very beginning, I could be a doctor at the bedside, but I choose to come into renewables is basically fighting climate change. Right? So this sustainable practice is one of the things I'm very, very proud to be part of. Right? Secondly is about equity and accessibility. Right? In the past, that electricity, well, not in the past, let's say 100, 120 years ago, electricity is a luxury thing, right? Today, everyone uses electricity without thinking of it, right? The fact of industry development is the fact that renewable energy simply can put a few panels over the roof in a cottage. Now you have light. Now you have connection. And you're not only providing safety because of the connection, but you also provide enjoyment. So this equity and accessibility is very important to me. Of course, economic transformation that enables such a, I would say, great economic development with the AI, with the data center, with other forms of energy dominant initiatives. So those are the three things that I'm most proud of that could be part of it.
Yeah, I love that so much. And this will probably go into the next question, the final question here is just what do you hope your legacy will be, not just for SolarBank, but for the renewable energy space as a whole? And if you want to throw on any last parting words of advice or wisdom, feel free to do so as well.
I think impact is very important, right? I sometimes joke with people to say that I'm being an occupational physician and I have an occupational disease. They said, what is your occupational disease? I said, when I'm driving around in the city, I always, while safely driving, I will always say, oh, look at that roof. That's my solar panels. When I'm driving in the countryside and say, oh, we have a solar farm there. We have a battery farm there. I couldn't be more proud that because that my team and very solid performing team that together we leave lasting impact, powering the world, keep the lights on, keep people connected. So very, very fortunate to be part of it.
Absolutely. It doesn't get much better than that. And largely fulfilling and great just mission for you personally and the company. Can't think of much of a better target than that. What we're trying to accomplish and those kind of things. So that's fantastic. So with that, we will wrap up our conversation with Dr. Richard Liu, President and CEO of SolarBank. From scaling a publicly traded renewable energy company to cultivating purpose-driven culture built on passion and perseverance, Dr. Liu's story is a powerful reminder that great companies are built with great people and long-term vision. If you enjoyed this episode, as always, be sure to subscribe to Green Giants, Titans of Renewable Energy. Share it with your network and join us next time for more insights from the leaders shaping the clean energy future. We'll see you soon.
This episode of Green Giants, Titans of Renewable Energy was brought to you by Lee Group Search. If you enjoyed today's discussion and are looking to recruit top talent for your company or find your next career opportunity in the renewable energy sector, visit leegroupsearch.com. Let's continue driving the future of clean energy together. Until next time, keep pushing toward a greener future.